Today let's start with a meditation. Just start with just breathing, to watch the breath. Let go of any disruptive thoughts, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future, and just be here right now. We'll do about three minutes on that, just watching the breath, and then I'll lead you through setting your motivation for the day. Okay. So now, in order to set your motivation for today, try to think that I will use this time to listen to the insights of the Dalai Lama. In order to widen my understanding, deepen my understanding. Understanding of my mind, of who I am. In order to become a calmer person, become more satisfied. But also to become more patient with myself and others. More loving and more compassionate. To better benefit myself, but also to benefit other people in this country. And either directly or indirectly, other living beings in this world. I guess I should have used this to start meditation. Alright. So, some of you were not here yesterday, many of you were here yesterday. So, of course, as you all know, what we're talking about is the book by the Dalai Lama. It's an amazing, beautiful book. It's quite unique in that the Dalai Lama specifically addresses the self in a very direct way, and it's not easy, but it comes along with these exercises, with these meditations at the end of each chapter, allowing us to go over this again and kind of very single-pointedly meditate on it. So I'll lead you through some of the meditations. I've changed them a little bit because you have the ones already here. Those you can do on your own. So I've kind of like done them slightly differently, and that shows you can just do it the way you want to. If you're interested in this subject matter, then not just reading. I mean, reading of course is the first step, reading about this, but then the next step would be to take it to a deeper level, to a more experiential level. In a meditative session, to not be distracted. Start the meditation with some breathing to get the mind more focused, less distracted, and then you start analyzing, thinking about these ideas. And there's a problem with doing this. There's a problem in the sense if you do this regularly, it can become automatic. Like, oh yeah, then this, okay, then this. You're just kind of going through it like a, I don't know, reciting it in your mind, and you're not really feeling it. So this is what the teachers, they always tell us again and again, you need to really feel it. It needs to come alive. It needs to be like you made it up. You came up with that idea. You're not repeating what someone else is telling you. No, you come up with your own ideas. And it's really fascinating when you do that, you do come up with your own ideas. In fact, sometimes just explaining it to someone else, you say things and you look at yourself and you go, what? Where does that come from? I mean, it happens to everyone who teaches the Dharma, who speaks about the Dharma. You come up with ideas you didn't even know they were there. While you're speaking, it's almost like, what? Where does that come from? So in the same way, in your mind, if you kind of talk about it in your mind, I mean, that's what a meditation is. You're kind of going through different steps. You come up with these amazing ideas, and that just shows we have this wisdom within us already. We just need to tap into it. So oftentimes through these meditations, it's not just repeating it like an automatic process. but it's like you bring in your own ideas, you bring out your own insights, and it comes alive. It should come alive. It should be like really move you from within. And once you've done that, once you've gone through the meditation, it's kind of moved you and it comes alive within you, then you spend a few moments just focusing on whatever experience you had, whatever insight you had. You single-pointedly focus on just that. It's almost like you become like a sponge and you soak it in and you allow it to go deeper into your mind. Kind of soak your mind in the experience. And when you do that, it affects you on a deeper level. I mean, actually, before we get angry, we do the same thing, right? It's the same process. Any emotion, before it arises, also the negative emotions, anger, attachment, jealousy, those types of awareness, they're emotion, they're afflictive emotions. So we talk about harmful emotions, like anger, attachment, jealousy, and we talk about beneficial emotions, love, compassion, rejoicing, patience, generosity, etc. And the process of their arisal is actually the same. It's a type of reasoning. It's thoughts. They come alive. So why do I get angry? Well, someone said something and then my mind goes through an analytical meditation. Well, a negative form. It's usually not called that, but it's kind of like, they just said that to me. Why would they say that to me? That is not okay. I've helped them many times. I don't deserve this. How dare they? Right? And so our mind goes through this process of analysis, and the result is this emotion. It gets stronger, it becomes more alive. We don't just go through it, oh, they shouldn't have said that, that's actually not all right. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to get angry. No, but it becomes more and more, it comes alive. And then we get angry. So it becomes bigger and bigger in our mind. We actually, because here there's a misperception of reality. I consider myself to be more important, the other person to be truly bad. It's got nothing to do with my mind in that moment. So it just takes on its own life. Like we're very good at meditating on anger in that way. It's like a real full meditation, fully felt. Right? And then, anger is there. I want them to be unhappy. I want to harm them. I want them to suffer. Whatever is our wish in that moment. So this comes natural to us. With attachment, it's the same thing. We're never spontaneously attached. So it's interesting if you become more mindful, if you watch your mind more, you use mindfulness and introspection to the process of how you get to attachment, how you become attached. Initially it's like, oh, this is good for me, makes me feel good, There's some steps, and then you grow attached. So in Buddhism, analytical meditation, why do we use it? It's because that's the mechanism of our mind. Our mind works like that. Emotional responses are always the result of some sort of thinking, of some sort of analysis. Even if it's skewed analysis, it's not always logical. Our mind doesn't work on a logical basis. In those situations, actually it doesn't. There may be a little bit of logic, but most of it is just an exaggerated view of the situation. But that being the case, emotions arising as a result of that, it makes sense that we use analysis, therefore, to undo those and replace these harmful emotional states with love, compassion, and so forth. All right. So this is just for the importance of analysis, because oftentimes people don't want to do analysis. They don't like it. They prefer to do shamatha. Just think of nothing. Which at times, of course, is beneficial. It's beneficial sometimes to just focus the mind, to be single-pointedly. Of course, we need to do those meditations too. Like a balanced nutrition or balanced diet, we need a balanced practice. So meditation, focused meditation, of course, we need that. But also we need analysis, because these positive emotions, they don't just pop up. I wish, but they don't. Why do they not pop up? Because of our basic misapprehension of reality. I talked about this a lot yesterday. Exaggerating how things exist. In general, there's a type of mind we have right now, which the good thing is we can remove it. But as long as we don't remove it, we need to live with it, I said this, I explained this yesterday, the real solution to all our trouble is removing this misapprehension by understanding that its object, that mind, that awareness, which misperceives the I, understanding the object, what is the object of that mind, and we'll go through this today as part of today's lesson or as part of today's meditation. But understanding that, then once we understand it's not there, the other mind that perceives it to be there cannot function. It'll just subside naturally. And since all the other afflictions, the self-centeredness, the anger, the attachment, they all arise from it, when you remove the main cause, the resultant states can no longer arise. So Buddhist practice really, when it comes down to totally eliminating that misapprehension, or totally eliminating, I should say, all harmful emotions, actually need to tackle that. But it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And right now, our misapprehension of reality is strong. It is strengthened by cultural, societal kind of ideas. Through our habits, we're very habituated to attachment, craving, etc. So we need to kind of reduce them a little bit. Otherwise, our understanding of reality cannot get through. It's almost like you're walking a road and there's so many big stones, you just don't get to move in that direction. So these big stones we need to remove. And that's why we do a lot of other practices. We do mindfulness, we work on with anger, meditate on the disadvantages of anger to reduce that, work with the coarsest attachment. Attachment is a tricky one, because oftentimes people, when they get into Buddhist practice, they ask me, I have attachment towards that, so I'm doomed. It's like, forget about that. You're going to be attached until the day you're not, which is like until you can actually remove the misperception. And even then, you still have subtle forms of attachment. So attachment will be there pretty much up to the end, just before you reach nirvana. Well, it's like the last thing you get rid of is the subtlest form of attachment. So don't get too obsessed about, oh, I'm attached to my children, I'm attached to my body. Well, you will be for a long time. So it's not so much about being attached in general, it's the strength of the attachment that you want to reduce. So if you're terribly obsessed with another person, I mean, just watch your own mind. The more attached you are, the more miserable you are. The more fear there is of losing this person, the more fear there is. So those things that give you the greatest fright, that gives you the greatest anxiety, the types of attachment goes along with worry, goes along with fear, it goes along with unhappiness. So those are the ones we need to deal with. If we have these negative kind of reactions, very strong suffering, then we need to tackle those more than the other ones. And anger, of course. Anger is a really, really harmful, very destructive state of mind. And anger can just mean a slight resentment, that frustration. And holding a grudge, for instance, it's really difficult holding a grudge, because it's like this burning, it's kind of burning within. Holding a grudge, yes. Can you say that again? Yeah, does everyone hear that word? Holding a grudge. So like, oh, God, I'm so angry with them, I'll deal what they've done to me, etc. So forgiveness is actually really important, not for the other person. It's not the other person may not even know you've forgiven them. It's not, I mean, it feels like it to do it for the other person, but you mainly do it for yourself. And as the Dalai Lama says, not in this book, but in a different text, he says, you must forgive the person. You don't have to forgive the action. You don't have to forgive the action. We don't have that form of resentment and anger with the action. It's the person. But here again, it's our misapprehension. There's a difference between the person and the action. Right? It's the person's action. We label a person on the basis of many, many, many different actions. So it's not just that one action that defines the person. There's so many characteristics that we all have. I mean, in our case, we're very good at recognizing it. Like, we know we have a certain negative quality, but we want others to also see our good qualities. We feel misunderstood. Have you ever noticed when someone criticizes you, you feel like you're misunderstood because the person only zooms in on a fault? And you feel like, but I have good qualities too. The way you're talking, it seems like I only have that fault, right? Which is why, if the other person tells you, well, you have a lot of good qualities, but there's also this one thing, then you feel understood. Okay, they see the whole picture. But when we're angry, we oftentimes don't see the whole picture. We want others to see the whole picture in our case. We want them to see also, yeah, we're angry, but that's not all. And that's not always there. And our hatred and whatever, it's there at times, but it doesn't define us. We're so much more than that. Well, that is true for everyone. But when we're angry, that angry mind, it obscures the whole picture. Our states of mind, they always zoom in on something. They're like this is narrow-minded, right? Narrow-mindedness. You zoom in on one aspect and focus on that and make it bigger than it is. That's what the anger does. Only the anger. I'm not saying your intellectual mind, but your intellectual mind does not cause the anger. It plays a little part in it, but when you're really upset with someone, there is a different type of reasoning at play. It doesn't even use language. So it's very hard to recognize it because there's no language to really hold on to it. It's more like feelings that you analyze. It's much subtler. It could almost be called the subconscious, which we're just less aware of. So it thinks about things, it reflects upon things, but it focuses on the negativity. And then the person who's done that, they're defined by that. They're nothing more than that negativity. So whatever else they've done, maybe good things they've done with other people, right? Little kindness they've shown, that totally disappears. So therefore, that sense of the person, that hatred we have towards that person, seeing the action and the person as one, it actually harms us greatly. It's a very negative force that physically has an effect on our body. Our blood pressure goes up, it weakens our immune system, and it doesn't harm the other person. Unless we go out and do something about it. But oftentimes we may get punished for beating them up, it's like, it doesn't go unpunished, and there's very little we can actually do to act upon this anger. And anyway, it doesn't make us feel better, it just enhances the anger, because then they react and there's like a back and forth, etc. So actually, the anger is the part that destroys us. It doesn't mean we cannot be strong. We have to stop an injustice. We have to stop it. But we do it with love and concern, also for the person involved, that they don't harm themselves. Very different result. The way we feel about it, and of course even the action itself, will be much more measured, much more balanced. So it's that anger. It's like the Buddha says, anger is like eating poison and expecting the other person to die. Recognize that in yourself. Recognize that in yourself. You're eating poison and you think it harms, but it doesn't harm the other person. It doesn't harm them. It mainly harms you. So forgiving is just for your own sake. Don't forgive the action. Forgive the person. The action was not okay, but the person is more than just that action. And then you can breathe, right? The poison wears off. Okay, so that's with resentment. But also, well, there's anger. There's so many different forms of anger. Like anger is kind of like the blanket term. But there's aversion. Well, the word aversion. What's aversion in Hebrew? What's the difference between anger and aversion in Hebrew? What is anger? What is aversion? Ah, okay. And it's different. It has a different... Yeah, definitely. Okay, good. So, aversion is kind of like maybe more... The blanket term is actually more aversion. When we're angry with someone, there's also in that moment a sense of aversion, a sense of dislike, frustration, etc. So that one we have to work with. The other one is jealousy. Jealousy is a problem of the 21st century. Not jealousy, it's more envy. Is there a difference in Hebrew? Jealousy versus envy? What is envy? You have 3 words.
The same word.
Oh, it's the same word. Okay. All right.
Not exactly. It's
Kinale, kinabe. Okay, good. All right. So there are different words.
But mainly it's just
Yeah, it's very similar.
It's like most people.
I tell you, in Tibetan, there are two words. Jealousy means yellow-eyed. That is like in a romantic relationship, for instance, you're jealous if your partner goes with someone else. Or in a relationship in general, you're jealous when someone is with that person. That's that kind of jealousy. And then there's the word chado. Chado as in like chado tsawo. Tsawo kind of means hot. Hotly envious. Chado tsawo. So chado is just envy and then being like hotly envious. That's like when another person has something that you want to have. So you resent the person for having that which you are attached to. So there's attachment, craving for something that you want to have for yourself, and resenting someone else for having it. And that is envy, that's the word envy, and that is, I think, of course, jealousy we also experience in relationships, etc. But what trying to say in the 21st century, our main problem is this envy. Why? Because this is the century of the self. I don't know whether you ever saw this ingenious kind of documentary. It's called The Century of the Self. It's got like 4 chapters. It's really amazing. It really it explains how not only do we have a natural self-centeredness we're born with as humans, as living beings, but also in the last century, the media, that is advertising, has actually recognized that if we enhance the sense of the self, we become more ambitious, we work harder, and we buy more stuff. Right? We get so there's I think it was actually a niece of Sigmund Freud or a nephew, I forget now, but it was a relative of Sigmund Freud. I think it was a nephew actually. Anyway, so he had this idea. He realized if I enhance the sense of self, I can make that person buy more stuff. Be different, buy Coke, right? Be special. Okay, so I cannot tell you much about it. It's been a few years since I watched it, but it's so psychological. It makes so much sense. Tapping into this sense of I want to be special. I want to be different. I want to be unique. So I buy these clothes. I want to be unique. I don't want to look like everyone else. So moving away from like emphasis on the group, but more emphasis on the I. Alright? So people work harder for that, like in socialism, that's one of the reasons people may work less hard unless they have the right kind of motivation, being intent on helping the group, helping society. But in general, we have a natural sense of I before others, right? So our self-centeredness, there's a sense of the I is more important than others, because of the way we perceive the I. And so therefore the sense my happiness is more important, I'm more important. Sometimes that's stronger, sometimes it's less strong. Or what is mine is more important. Of course our children are kind of part of the I oftentimes. But like in general, the sense of I, that gives us a sense of, well, I need to work hard for myself. I'm less likely to work for a group. Okay, so socialism can fail if that is too strong, or when that has a certain level of strength. So the point is, therefore, our century is the century of the self. Like the media, advertising. I love advertising, actually. I love it. It's scary if you don't understand it. So I'm also like, I'm respectful of it, and I'm fearful of the influence it has on my mind, and I don't expose myself so much to it. Of course, I cannot totally avoid it. It's all around me. It's like subconsciously, subliminal. What they're called? Subliminal messages, like messages they, on a subconscious level. But I'm also amazed at the sophistication